and then Jim is going to kick it off with revisiting the fee schedule that he had come up with for the various lodging facilities. I did not receive any public appearances, so unless there's anyone on the call, we will skip that, and then we'll revisit pest control and the DII, the death, illness, and injury reports. There are a couple concerns with those two sections. And then lastly, we will propose the specialty lodging language. So the last three sections that we have to present. So with that being said, we will move on to roll call. Greg, are you on? Amy?
Present.
Chrissy?
Here.
Lori? Emily? Melissa?
I'm here.
Brandon?
Good afternoon here.
Corey? Greg?
I'm here.
Jason?
Here.
Jim Kaplanik's on.
Yep.
Jason Hager? Trista?
I'm here.
Bill?
Here.
Andy?
Here.
Jumani? And David?
I'm here.
All right. Anyone else that I did not call? Reed
Here.
and Mary Ellen, I believe, said she could not make it. Is there anyone else on the call here? It's like Adam Brock, you were on.
Matt McKay is here.
Greg Stillman is joined.
Okay. Hi, Greg. Matt McKay and Sawyer. Perfect. And Desi, looks like you're on.
Yep, Desi with Bayfield County.
Perfect. And then Linda, our returning guest. I believe that's everyone that's has joined. Perfect. All right. Again, where we've been, we're just about wrapped up here with reviewing this language. We just have 3 sections left, which we're going over today. Jim will be starting with the fee discussion in a second. And we will continue that discussion in the July meeting and then wrap up any final comments or discussion points on the proposed draft. So with that being said, I will turn this over to Jim.
Okay. I'm going to share screen. And can I get a confirmation that people can see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I apologize. I do have to leave a little bit shortly after my presentation for a medical appointment. I could not rearrange. But the intent of today was to, there's a lot of information to digest. And so I kind of wanted to give you the background, kind of explain how we came up with our figures. And then I proposed basically 3 different models. Again, these are just proposals, suggestions. And then I figured we'd give you time to digest that, and we could have other suggestions or continued discussion at the next meeting in July. So just to give you a little bit of background regarding fees, lodging fees have not been addressed since 2008. And then we had a 5% increase in 2010. So pretty much 16 years, fees have remained at the current rate with no adjustments. And as you can imagine, program costs have dramatically increased over that 16 years. And the gap between the expenses to run the program and the revenue that we're bringing in through license fees, that gap is getting wider and wider. And we cannot continue to operate effectively with the current fee structure that we have now. So the methodology that I used for this is I basically took the total expenses that it cost us to run the retail and recreational programs for all program areas. And then I determined the percentage of the central office staff which are used to support the program, whether it's through licensing or technical support or IT support. I included field staff cost, supplies and services, the cost of our electronic inspection program, and associated laboratory costs. And you add all of those things together, that gives us what our total expenses are for the retail and recreational program. And then what I did is for each program area, I determined what the average time was to perform a specific type of inspection. And then I multiplied that by the total number of establishments of that type. And then I took the total number of hours for the entire program and divided that by the hours of the lodging inspections. And that gave me a percentage. And that was a percentage of lodging and inspection hours dedicated to the lodging program. I did this for campgrounds, for swimming pools, for retail food establishments. And so what you get at the end is we have our total hours, 100% of that is dedicated to the recreational and retail programs, and then calculated out the hours attributed to each particular program area. And then that percentage of the budget is what that particular program is responsible for. So that's basically kind of what I said here is the calculated percentage is applied to the total expenses need to run the retail and recreational program. That's the number then that I use for calculating the fee structure. I proposed 3 different models for consideration, but of course we are open to any other suggestions. Other ideas are welcomed, but at the end of the day, we need to balance our expenses with the total revenue that is generated so that we get as close to breaking even as we possibly can. So again, the breakdown of the currently licensed facilities, these are state licensed facilities, which is what the state fees are based upon. We have our lodging, which is 5 to 30. We have 308 of those facilities. 31 to 99, we have 154 of those facilities. 100 to 199, we have 8. 200 plus, we have 6. And we have 2,825 tourist rooming house licenses for a total of 33, roughly 3,300 lodging facilities that are state inspected.
Hey, Jim,
So
Bill
then what
Elliott here.
Yep.
I'm sorry, do you mind if I jump into the quick question on that?
Sure.
I know that our numbers are different, but that's probably because you said those are state inspected. Can you remind me, is it just a few counties that that have their own agencies that are doing it, or what's the difference there?
There are 60 agent local health departments. And so the state inspects probably about between 25 and 30% of all the facilities in the state, and 75% of facilities are inspected by local health departments that are agents for the department.
Thank you.
Is that? Yep.
Appreciate that.
Yep. And so what we have is what our central office expenses are for the retail and recreational program, and then actually the percentage of time that they attribute to our program area. We figure out the rate of pay, the salary, the fringe, that percentage of time. We add in the standard costs, which is for supplies and equipment, and we get a grand total for our central office expense, which is of roughly $2.5 million. So we look at what our total net central office expense is. We include our laboratory costs, our central office expense, our inspection program. So we have a total overhead of a little $3 million. We subtract the reimbursement amount that the agents pay back to the department, which is a little over $1 million. So we come up with a net central office operating expense of just shy of $2 million. Then we figure out what the staff expenses are for the inspection work that needs to be completed. And we come up there with a total cost of roughly $2.6 million. So you add the central office expense and the field expense, we get a total expense for the retail food and recreational program of about $4.5 million to run the entire program. So then again, we took the average inspection times for the lodging, which came up to 4,855 total inspection hours for lodging. Total inspection hours for the entire program is 20,233 inspection hours. Divide that by the 4855, and we get 24%. So roughly the lodging program is responsible for 24% of our expenses. And so what that intends to be is you take our central office costs, our field cost, we get a total expense times 24%. At the end of the day, this is what it cost us to run the lodging program, which is just a little over $1 million. So what I did is, this was very difficult to try to get all of this into one slide. So I broke it into tourist rooming houses, hotel motel, and then the specialty lodging. And so some of the things that you'll notice from the previous slide is that the TRHs now are broken into segments, kind of like the hotel. So if you have one TRH, this is what your proposed fee would be for Model 1, proposed fee for Model 2, proposed fee for Model 3. And what the pre-inspection fee would be. And then we actually now have 2 to 4 TRHs, 5 to 9 TRHs, 11 to 19 TRHs, all the way up to 600 plus TRHs, and what the corresponding proposed license fee would be, regardless if it's Model 1, Model 2, or Model 3. And then also included in that would be a 5% increase for, considering this would be passed in 2025, we would have a 5% increase in 2026 2027. And then that would carry us through until the next time fees are addressed in the future. So this is what the tourist rooming house is, the projected number of facilities that would fall into those licensing categories. The next slide is the hotel and motel. And again, we've increased the categorization. 5 to 30 stays the same, 31 to 99. Now we go from 100 to 249, 250 to 499, 500 to 749, and 750 to 1,000, and then 1,000 plus. And then the corresponding license fees that you would see for Model 1, Model 2, and Model 3. And again, the 5% increase. And where we believe those facilities would fall out. Currently, we don't believe we have any facilities in the 500 or greater range that are state licensed. And then the last section is the proposed lodging fee for specialty lodging, which is kind of modeled off the tourist rooming house. Since we don't currently have any specialty lodging, we don't have any facilities that currently fall into that. And so it was really difficult to estimate what those numbers would be, but it will be something. We just don't know what those numbers will be at this point in time. So I know this is a lot of information that we're throwing at you that you haven't had a chance to look at. So really it was an opportunity to kind of lay it out there for you guys to take it back and absorb the information, and then bring back any thoughts or comments to our next meeting in July. And so here was what our revenue target was the 1,092,271.49. With Model 1, this is the revenue that would be generated. Model 2, this is the revenue that would be generated. And Model 3, this is the revenue that would be generated. And then again in 2027, with the 5% increase, this is the target amount. And then here's what each of those models brings in for projected revenue. And so that's kind of what we've initially come up with based on what it takes to run the program. And I can answer any kind of lingering questions that people may have at this point. But
I got one, Jim.
Yeah.
Could you give just a quick synopsis on the differences between Model 1, Model 2, and Model 3? I think one had a higher routine, one had a higher pre-inspection. If you could just describe that.
Yeah, basically it's very, very difficult when your every little change, depending upon the types of facilities that you have, makes a dramatic impact. And so at first what I tried to do was Model 1 was just try to take the existing fee that we had and just kind of build upon that. And then in Model 2, what I tried to do is take a different approach, experimenting with either lowering or increasing the pre-inspection fees. And then the same thing in Model 3. And it's very, very difficult. You can't make too big of changes in one area or another, or it just completely throws everything off. So it's very, very difficult to try to come up with the different licensing models. But I basically in Model 1 really tried to build off that what the current fee structure was and build off of that for the existing categories that we had. And of course, we created a lot of new categories for the hotel and motel on the higher end. And then definitely a whole new licensing structure for tourist rooming houses. But again, this is kind of, you can't imagine a number of hours spent trying to play with these numbers to try to get to the amount of revenue that we needed. So certainly I'm open to any other suggestions or ideas, but this is initially kind of what we came up with.
And there was a question from Trista. Does the time spent on inspections include travel and commute time, or is it just the inspection time?
It's just the inspection time, and it's an average across the entire state of what it costs to do this type of work. So that's probably 200 plus sanitarians figures that I asked for through various health departments around the state to kind of get a basically a statewide average for the inspection times.
Jim, Greg Stillman here.
Yeah.
I know you said the last time this was looked at was 2008.
Correct.
Was there a similar matrix used to come up with the costs at that point
Yes.
to help just kind of understand?
Yep.
If you just look at those two bigger categories, you're looking at a 60 and 70% increase from the last time it was looked at, and that could easily be broken down if you say it was the same, that those costs have gone up perhaps 60 or 70% since this formula
Right.
was looked at in
Right.
the past.
Yeah.
And
I
that
mean,
might
if you,
help to explain
yeah.
it, for Bill to explain it to the lodging community,
Yep.
and help answer questions from that standpoint.
Yeah, actually in 2008, I actually had brought all the industry together and we were all in one room. And I said, and at that time, fees had not been, the last time I think fees were dealt with would have been in the mid 90s. And so we were dealing kind of like in a similar situation where it had been a 10 or 12 years. And I basically brought all the industry together. And at that time, we did what was an omnibus rule, which we adjusted all fees at one time. Now we've just been kind of doing it as we open up the rules and bringing everybody up to speed. But yes, in 2008, we did the same thing. We had the same discussion. I felt it was important just to kind of throw all the cards on the table and say, this is where we are. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. And I understand nobody likes to have a fee increase, but you've had a pretty good run at 14 years. And at some point, we would have loved to have been able to do indexing where we could have a small increase every year. But the legislature doesn't really like us to do that. And so we're kind of stuck with these. We go for a long period of time where fees are stagnant, and then we have a big increase to try to catch back up. And it's just unfortunate that that's the kind of cycle that we're in. But you are correct. If you were to take the difference and break that down over 14 years, actually the percent increase is relatively probably small.
Yeah, I think if you just quick math on that, it's about 4 or 5%, which I think most people could understand, especially if it's been flat and hasn't been addressed in that time frame. But that would be helpful just to maybe have that information, or at least some of that information to be able to explain.
I could add that to the slides here, and then I'll have that information for you next time we meet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, Bill Elliott here. It looks to me like the biggest difference, I guess, would be in Model 2 that has the lower pre-inspection fees and I guess a little bit higher of the regular fees. And I'm not sure, I'm not prepared to speak for my members at this point, but just seeing how slightly the prices are different between 1 and 3, especially, I'm not sure that we're going to have a huge opinion, either way on
Right.
which model is best. So I guess my question for you is, at this point, do you have a feeling from the department which one would be the best for the department, the easiest to administer?
It doesn't matter to me. This is kind of the same conversation that I had back in 2008. They were kind of like, you know what, Jim, it really doesn't matter to us. You pick which one. In any of these are, and that's why I propose three different models. They all work. So it's really what is the flavor of what industry is thinking. Would they rather have a higher pre-inspection fee that is for a new operation coming on board, and that keeps the overall cost of the existing licenses down? That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, we pay a higher annual license fee, and we keep the pre-inspection fees a little bit lower for new businesses. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to the department which way we go, as long as we're recouping the cost that it takes to run the program. And I think what industry most appreciated is that we basically kind of opened up the books, and we're transparent with what we were talking about, what our needs are. Here's the costs of what it takes to run the program, and they were just appreciative that they had a chance to participate and comment on the process. And at the end of the day, I think that most of the industry that we had dealt with didn't have a problem with one model over the other. But I just didn't want to propose one model and say that this is it. It's kind of like, here's three different models that we came up with. If you guys have a preference, or if you have other ideas that you'd like to explore, we certainly can talk about those as well.
Thank you. Do you know how these types of fees compare to, and I don't know if this is even, maybe it's not worth asking the question because it doesn't matter, because you have to hit that number at the end of the day, but do we know how these fees compare to to those that aren't being inspected by the state, that you have your agents instead?
Yeah, the agents have the ability to set their own fees. So a lot of your agents right now are probably a little bit more nimble than what the state is, and the agents are charging the fees right now that it takes to run their program. And so, just because the state fee goes up doesn't necessarily mean an agent fee goes up. It really depends on the agent. Right now is setting the fees for what it costs them to run their program. Now, you do have some agents that charge exactly what the state charges, and those fees, of course, then will match the state's. But a lot of your agents have the ability to set their fees at an amount for what it takes them to run their program. So some may have a fee increase, some may not have a fee increase, but each individual agent has statutory authority to create the license fee that it takes for them to run their program.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep. Any other questions before Ted moves on? And I'll return the screen to you, Ted.
Bill, and everyone else there, I just dropped Sauk County's license fees, for example, for their different programs. Just so you can get an idea. They obviously have a high density of lodging.
Ted, it's back. You can share again.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we are moving on then. I did want to add in here for department fees. This has been added since the initial reading. And that was if an individually keyed unit is added to a premises of a lodging facility after that initial issuance of a license, an additional pre-inspection fee that corresponds to the number of units added shall be paid to the department or its agent pursuant to the fee tables that Jim just went over. This doesn't happen a whole heck of a lot in lodging. It's more so in campgrounds where you have expansions of their loops and such. But the way it's set up right now, there's no way to capture a fee for an inspection. So either the inspection is delayed until the following routine inspection, which might be a following year, up to 18 months, or inspection staff are going out there pro bono and taking a look at the newly added rooms in this case without collecting any type of fee for doing so. So this was added in to bridge that gap and collect some fee for doing the work and ensuring that it actually is being inspected prior to occupation by tourists or transients. So did want to point out that that has been added in. On to pest control. When this was initially read through, I believe Bill and Greg had some feedback or wanted to provide some feedback in regards to licensed pest control operators that are in rural settings. Again, the rule here or the provision says that the department or its agent may order an operator to hire a licensed PCO to exterminate pests under the following conditions. Either it's so extensive that it's unlikely that a non-professional can eradicate them, or upon reinspection, the pests are still there despite a written order to rid the establishment of those pests. So to Bill and Greg, were you able to brainstorm any proposed language, or do you have any feedback for us on this?
Yeah, this is Bill. Actually, I connected with Brandon McConnell on it, and I don't think
Okay.
Greg and I ever had the opportunity. And I'm having some computer difficulties, of course, as soon as the question was asked. So I'm I'm trying to restart that.
Okay.
So if I can either shoot those to you after this meeting or during this meeting once I get restarted.
Yeah, that's
But
fine.
we did have some suggestions on that one.
Okay, very good. And then on the same token, there was some concern with DIIs, the death, illness, or injury reports, and perhaps the scope of when an operator would be required to report to the department or its agent when EMS services were to respond. So was there any discussion, or you should we hold off on that due to your computer?
Yeah. So there actually that one I can answer. There was
Okay.
discussion on it, and quite honestly, we could not come up with a way. Well, we certainly understand what you're trying to do and the why. We could not find a way where we could wordsmith language that we'd be comfortable with and not feel like we're opening up our industry to risk. So I'm afraid we might be a little bit too far apart on that. Maybe I'll ask, since it was more than a month ago when Brandon and I talked, maybe I'll ask Brandon, do you want to chime in? Do you have anything to add to that?
No, it was definitely something we spent a couple hours on, seemingly back and forth, even after the initial call and texting. And I think there is a possibility to find some more language before July. But we just know as it's written right now, it opens too much, and we just couldn't quite. We knew what you wanted to do, and we know what was best for the department, and we were trying to really balance both. And we were struggling on our end. So I think that one, to Bill's point, was still being discussed.
Okay.
And I believe that there was some talk about possibly one or two other voices coming into that, but that's something that we're still actively working on, trying to get back to the group.
Okay, sounds good. And
I think-
go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say, Ted, you and I, now that at least we know what some of the concerns of Bill and Brandon are, that you and I might be able to take a crack at seeing if we can
Sure.
rephrase this at all so that we can bring back something to the table as well for discussion.
And
And we had stuff on Bill's notes that maybe listed, I think, 2 or 3 bullet points that we thought were just a little broad. So once we get that to you, I think that will help as well. We'll
Okay,
come together.
sounds good.
oh, yep, that works. All right, moving along then. So our last sections here are specialty lodging. So we have a definition for specialty lodging, and that means a unique type of structure greater than 400 square feet in area, but less than 1,500 square feet, typically located in rural or natural settings and provides an unconventional lodging experience. Note yurts greater than 400 square feet, eco lodges, and primitive cabins are some examples of specialty lodging. So currently we have a licensing gap. If an individual has a larger cabin that maybe has a composting toilet located in an outhouse, or a privy that's approved by local zoning and it's located outside of that lodging facility, there's no real way to license them. If it's been 400 square feet or less, we've been going the camping cabin route and putting them in ATCP 79 campgrounds, which does allow water and toilets located outside of the actual unit itself. But the lodging code has always required a toilet, hand washing sink or lavatory, and shower or bathtub within that lodging unit. So if people are proposing something greater than 400 square feet without all 3 of those fixtures, it's kind of a no man's land for licensing, and they can't do it. So this provision or this subchapter is to allow that. We are open to any suggestions on this. If this is a bad idea, if this is going to create loopholes, feel free to let us know. Again, 1,500 square feet. I don't know if we're just kicking the can for when someone proposes a structure with 1,550, and now that can't be licensed. So open to any suggestions, but that's where the 400 square feet comes in to differentiate it from a camping cabin, and have it as this primitive lodging specialty unit. So with that said, section 27, exemptions. In addition to the requirements under the subchapter, all the requirements under 72 apply to specialty lodging except as follows. A, water systems. A specialty lodging facility with an outside water supply system approved pursuant to 72.161, which is a public or private water system, with no plumbing fixtures provided within the structure, is exempt from 72.162C. 2C is water temperature, which states all sinks have to get up to 85 degrees. I did scratch out paragraph 4 because that was the plumbing standard and backflow prevention. Obviously, if someone has an outdoor water spigot, we want to make sure that that meets a plumbing standard and has backflow on there. So I didn't want to create a loophole there. So I did scratch that out. B, sewage disposal systems. A specialty lodging unit with no liquid or water carried waste plumbing fixtures is exempt from 72.171 and 2. 1 being the POUT standard and 2 being a connection to a POUTS or municipal sewer. If they do have liquid or water carried waste plumbing fixtures, then they would have to obviously connect to either municipal or a POUT system. It can't drain degrade. 2, a specialty lodging facility with an outside toilet shall be approved pursuant to 72.175. 5C, and that is alternatives to water carried waste fixtures, which includes portable toilets, composting toilets, incinerating toilets, and privies. And 3, outside toilet facilities are exempt from 72.175 A, B, D, and E. A is a full bathroom being required. B is being a full bathroom required for shared parties. D is soap and hand wash or hand drying means. And lastly, E is bathroom waste receptacle. Prohibitions. A, food equipment and sinks, specialty lodging facilities that are exempt under 72.27A and B shall not be provided with food contact utensils, sinks for hand washing, utensil washing, and sanitization or cooking equipment except for a microwave oven. Chrissy, you have a question.
Yeah, Dad, are we supposed to see something on your screen? Am I the only one who's not seeing that?
Has everyone else seen my screen?
I am, Chad.
Okay.
Oh, must be just me. Sorry. Okay.
Yep, that's
thanks.
okay. All right, B size, specialty lodging facilities shall not exceed 1,500 square feet by measuring the exterior footprint formed by the exterior walls. The exterior footprint does not include porches or decks not used for overnight sleeping accommodations. Section 29, general provisions. A, water supply. An outdoor potable water supply shall be available within 400 walking distance feet. B, toilet facilities. If the toilet facility is located outside the specialty lodging unit, the toilet shall be available within 400 walking distance feet. C, communication to guests. Guests shall be clearly informed during the reservation process. 1, what elements are provided in the specialty lodging unit, including information regarding water supply and location, toilet location, lack of cooking equipment, except for microwave, no utensils or hand washing sink, and whether electricity, heating, or air conditioning will be provided. 2, what guests are required to provide, such as linens, outdoor cooking utensils, and disposable eating utensils. So, initial thoughts or comments on this notion of a specialty lodging?
Hey Ted, this is Jason with St.
Yes.
Croix County here.
Mhm.
Just as a bigger thought is when we're dealing with sanitary systems, we can't be discharging gray water to the ground surface. So like when we get down farther and we're washing our silverware and stuff like that, that could cause a problem for, I'll call it the non-plumbing sanitary system, like an incinerating or a privy toilet. Is what are people going to do with that waste, especially if they're not familiar with a dwelling or a lodging situation where they don't have sanitary facilities, conventional sanitary facilities, I guess.
Yeah, the idea is if any sinks are provided, then they would have to be that wastewater would have to be captured. The idea would be that there would not be any sinks provided.
So it'd be basically throwaway silverware would be used at those establishments then.
Right.
Good.
Ted, Matt here.
Mm-hmm.
This category seems like it opens up another can of worms for, us as a county that has already 600 tourist rooming houses, and then the potential for so many more additional licenses with the specialty category that it could be a significant workload for us as well. But I also have the sanitary concerns, like the gentleman before mentioned also.
Okay. More of, I guess maybe like I don't want to say an abuse of the system, but basically it's going to happen anyways. If sinks aren't provided, is that your concern? That wastewater is still going to be generated?
Right.
Okay.
Ted, I think I could just add in that I think the low cost of entry into that type of a business would be quite an incentive for somebody to open up, smaller facilities.
Right. Yeah, I know with the campground code, we have rustic campsites, which is like your, I think, Appalachian Trail backpacking. and we do have some prospective operators that gravitate towards that because it lists all these exemptions. So it seems like you can have a campground without any infrastructure, and that's not necessarily the case. So yeah, definitely don't want to create a loophole section here from everything that we just covered over the many months by putting something in here that would allow that to happen. So
I guess my question would be is, would you feel more comfortable with something like this if it was limited to the number of structures that they could actually have?
or people
Right, well,
occupancy.
like, let's say, that you had a piece of property and you would be, limited to 3 structures or 4 structures. Once you get beyond that, then you need to, hook into a POTS or a municipal system. We're just trying to find a way to deal with a niche that's becoming very popular, instead of just saying no all the time. Is there a way that we can accommodate this niche for those people that want to enjoy that type of experience? And could it be that you can't, that you're limited to the number of structures that you could have under your license?
I mean, I think that would certainly help. I mean, we get a lot of requests for like the geodome type structures, which, still kind of up in the air as to whether those are allowed or not. But yeah, we do see a lot of requests for those things, and we tell them that they kind of need to go the route of the camping code, and that kind of, based on, at least in Sawyer County, you have to have so many acres to be able to go that route. But this, it wouldn't probably be a different situation where you could have just a 1 acre lot and throw one of these small structures in there, and everybody and their brother is going to want to do this, I think, and I think it's just going to add a greater number of licenses. When I know there's a great demand for it, it's I think there's going to see more scenarios that will come up with this.
Yep. Yeah, one of the reasons that Ted and I actually started looking at this is because this is happening all over the country. And people are coming to us and saying, well, why can't I do this in Wisconsin? I can do this in all these other states have the ability to do this. Why can't I do this in Wisconsin? And so we said, well, why can't they? And that's when we started looking at this whole concept of specialty lodging. And it's a start again to try to accommodate that niche and the continued request that we get from individuals that want to be able to do something like this. And again, this isn't for everybody. If I go to a lodging facility, I don't want to have to bring my own stuff. I want to have a water and a shower. I'm not going to be one of those that is going to be entertaining one of these. But there's a segment of the population out there that wants that more rustic experience. And should we be able to try to accommodate that in Wisconsin? That's really what we're attempting to do here. If we can narrowly define it, put some restrictions on it, and still allow something like this to move forward, I think we're open to that as well.
Yeah, any ways to minimize abuse of this model would be welcomed, or exploiting it. I guess maybe speaking from Reed, do you go to places like this in Canada? I guess from a consumer standpoint, have you?
Yeah, Ted, I mean Ontario has a flourishing industry with exactly this model with privies, and of course they're not putting in hand pump wells, but they're bringing carboys of fresh water. So that industry has successfully been maintained for decades in Canada, but they meet those Canadian restrictions. And so I think that it was, Jim says, people come to us and say, what's wrong with doing it here? That's where that's coming from. Or they're going out in the Rocky Mountains doing the same thing.
Right.
Or any of the major hiking trails in the country. I think if you can meet a DSPS rule for a safe privy that's fully permitted, thumbs up. If you can produce safe water, great. If you can put a smoke alarm in, wonderful. I think you and Jim did a great job going out there and requiring people give a notice, because like Jim said, a lot of this, there's probably a lot of people that are looking at that going, yeah, I think I'll pass on the no shower bit, but there's a segment of the population. That's why it's here, because we're getting asked about it. Mountain bikers, walleye fishermen, grouse hunters, backcountry hikers, just people that want to get out of the city and away from devices and have a simpler experience. So just to hit 400 square feet and say, nope, that's not an option is quite a bureaucratic answer that
Right.
I just think we're trying to find legal, safe options that protect public health and allow for this business model. Ted, how did I do? Did I answer your question
that's
about?
good. Yeah, no, that was, I think, a good perspective. And possibly Bill, what from industry side, what do you think about this? Does this kind of tarnish the image of lodging? Do you think this is acceptable, something worth exploring? Just curious on your take. Or anyone else from industry. It doesn't have to necessarily be Bill.
Unfortunately, if you guys can hear me, I'm continuing to have tech challenges. I'm traveling with bad Wi-Fi, so I can't make out the last maybe 2 minutes.
Okay, no,
it's here and there. So if one of the other guys wants to jump in.
Yeah, this is Brandon McConnell. I think it's a pretty fair approach with some of the conversation we've had here, and I appreciate somebody saying in this process, hey, let's not just keep bureaucratic answers. So I think we've all as a group have worked hard on this process to stay away from that. So I think we're in a good space.
Okay. All right. That's all I have for new proposed language. It was a short and sweet one, but it may open a can of worms, like Matt had said, or may not. May be an opportunity. So, any final thoughts on the fees while we still have Jim or the specialty lodging?
I have a question. This is
Sure.
Chrissy from the Dells.
Yep.
We're getting a large amount of inquiries here if there's like houseboat options. Does that fall under this
No,
category? Okay.
Yeah, we wrote in the licensing section, and I don't expect you to remember this stuff, but in the very beginning of what requires a license and what does not, if I can find it,
And
a houseboat is exempt from that.
yeah,
Okay.
renting a houseboat is no different than somebody renting an RV and traveling around. I mean, we wouldn't issue a lodging license to somebody who rented an RV. And
Sure.
we were proposing not to issue a lodging license to somebody who rents a houseboat.
And
Because
we also,
we're
but sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention we've noticed, at least here in our area, some people who are basically renting to guests a houseboat experience on sites like Airbnb and whatnot. So I just didn't know if that would be in this definition. And I don't know if some of the other it's new for us here. I'm sure some of the other areas that are lake heavy, maybe it's not as new. So I was just curious if that was something people were seeing more of.
Yeah, I think up and down along the Mississippi, you see houseboat rentals have been going on for decades.
Jim, usually you and I have found that the marinas up and down the Mississippi River, they're equipped with fresh water and wastewater disposal off these houseboats. So we haven't regulated them, but it seems like they had the logistics of it pretty well in check.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, we don't have that much traffic here, especially on like the river here in the Dells. We don't have, we have some marina expectation, but not a lot. So I was really more, it brought the question up because of wastewater and those types of things. And personally, from someone who's seen some of these structures they're renting, I think it would qualify as primitive experiences, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I was asking the question is again, if that's in a different area, maybe that just wouldn't fall under this definition.
I think in the
Yeah.
past, because the waterways were regulated by the federal government, the state of Wisconsin didn't have jurisdiction. That's been
Oh,
part of
okay.
our discussion over the years.
Yeah, and if you
Okay.
have somebody that's illegally dumping water carried waste on a river or a lake, DNR is going to be right on top of that.
Yep, there's a mechanism to deal with that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And to add to your comment, that also included, I can't find the licensing thing off the top of my head right now, but it included unfrozen waterways. So ice shanties and things of those sorts being rented out would not be within the scope of the lodging code.
Got it. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we will have our final meeting the last Tuesday of July. We will basically take any type of final comments regarding either the fees. We'll choose a fee model at that time, and then we'll answer any additional questions. I will have a copy of the proposed rule attached to that meeting notice. I'll try to get it done by this Friday, so that you have a complete draft of the proposed language and incorporating the feedbacks that we have received so far. And then we can also at that July meeting tease out the rest of this, the DIIs and the rural licensed pest control operator. I just saw that Bill sent me some of that language, but we'll look at that again for July.
Yeah, and Ted, I would say that we may possibly have a meeting like September, once we get all of the language and everything through legal and through the department,
Okay.
that we can just kind of have a quick meeting to talk about anything that may have been changed by legal or the department, just so everybody is kind of up to speed on what the language is before it goes through the process.
Sent out.
So
Sure.
yeah, I don't want anybody to be caught by any surprises by, well, when did that get put in the rule? I'd rather have everyone be on the same page that we are.
Sure. And I assume legal does make some changes.
I'm sure they will, and the clearinghouse will probably make some changes. And a
Okay.
lot of those things we don't have control over. The clearinghouse says you need to make this change, and we make the change. And so usually it doesn't affect the rule. It's really just sometimes wordsmithing or how it's organized. But to that extent, I still want everybody to have a clear understanding of what the final rule is going to look like.
Okay. Sounds good. That's everything that I have for you guys, and I will connect with you at the end of July.
All right. Talk to you later.
Okay. Have a good one.
Thanks. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great day.